Hello YouTube, different type of video today, not actually going to play guitar. This is my second attempt. The first attempt I did far too much in the video, it was 40 minutes long and it didn't make sense even to me. So, coil splitting. So I'm going to start off pretty basic. This is a Strat pickup, a single coil guitar pickup. This is just a cheapy one. Right, so what you've got here on the end of this wire is a shield, which I'm calling a shield, or the earth. I'll probably call it shield or earth in different ways. I think in America you call it ground, but hey, same thing. Right, and then you've got the output, which is sometimes called hot. I may call it hot, I may call it output, depending on which word I use. Both mean the same thing. So what a pickup is, on super basic terms, is a magnet with a very thin wire wrapped around it. Lots of times, 10,000, something like that. I'm not sure exactly how many. Right. So the magnet in this case, this is here's the magnet here, and these are steel poles. So when you stick the magnet onto the metal poles, it makes these magnetic as well. On a more expensive pickup, which is a Fender one, you can see it doesn't have the magnet on the bottom. That's because the poles are actually made of magnets. So I believe these are called Alnico. And this is called ceramic, because this is a ceramic magnet stuck at the bottom. Very similar thing. Right, so you've got a magnet with a wire wrapped around it loads of times. The start of that wire that's wrapping around it and the end of that wire that's wrapping around it are the two terminals. You can see, you can't actually see them in this pickup. Can you see them in this one? Okay, you can. Right, and this you can see there's two terminals. 1 and 2. If you see from the top, you can see there, which is what this one here, obviously the shield goes to. This is what the hot or the out goes to. All they are is the start and the end of that piece of wire that's wrapped around the magnet. And what happens is you've got this in your guitar. The string sits on top and vibrates and creates a very small current that goes between these 2 points. It goes between this wire and this wire, like a pure tiny millivolts or something, or milliamps. Sod all, not getting electrocuted off it, you're all right. It's like, there's not, so one of the best things, one of the reasons I started working on guitars rather than working on amps or electrical things on an amp, you can set yourself on fire or die, whereas on a guitar you're totally fine. There's nothing you can do that will really damage anything, assuming that your amp is okay. If your amp, I mean, I said this in the last video and I figured people might die from it, but so on your amp you've got you get the tip. This is a mono guitar lead. The tip and the sleeve. So in theory, on the inside of your amp, a wire could have jumped from the power supply onto one of these, so it's actually running 240 volts through you. So maybe not licking the inside of the guitar while it's plugged in is a good idea, just in case. Not that you'd want to lick it anyway. I'm pretty sure that my amp's all right, but I still wouldn't lick that. I would lick the inside of a guitar when it's not plugged in. It'd be fine. Yeah, so as I said, single coil pickup. This is a humbucker pickup. It's actually got a pole missing. I don't know why it's got a pole missing. This one's probably bursts. Is 2 single coils stuck together. I'm going to use the Fender ones, are a good idea. Right, and the trick in a humbucker is one of these coils is wrapped clockwise and has a magnet in it, and the other one is wrapped anti-clockwise and has a magnet upside down in it. So when the signal comes through a single coil, right, you get it's amplifying, it's picking up this string vibrating. It's also picking up interference and stuff. Whereas if you stick this one and this one together, this one being reverse polarity and reverse wound, and then stick them both together, it listens to both of them, but the interference is opposite, which means it gets rid of the interference, being hum cancel, making it cancel out the hum for hum cancelling. In this case, I'm using these 2 Duosonic pickups, which probably isn't ideal, but anyway, yeah. So these ones are reverse wound. If you've got a modern Strat, even a cheapy one, the chances are the middle pickup will be reverse wound and reverse polarity, which means that when you're in position 2 and 4 on the switch, it'll be hum cancelling. You will know this if you stick on your fuzz pedal and then you don't play the guitar and hold it up at the amp, it'll buzz, and if you put it into positions 2 and 4, it should be significantly less buzzy than it is in 1, 3 and 5, because the two of them are cancelling out the hum. Right, that is the two pickups in parallel though. So they both go to earth, and they both come, the hot comes out of both of them, and the two hots go together. And so if you imagine it's running through the two of them, so they're both, if you imagine this is just going in the bottom and out the top, so two earths, two outputs, there you go. The two are just running, sitting next to each other. When you put them in series, which it is in a humbucker pickup, it's like if you imagine earth's on the bottom of this one, comes out of this one, goes into this one, and then comes out of this one, so it's running through this one, then this one, not the two of them at the same time. That sort of boosts it and gives you the humbucker sound, which is fatter, more rocking, I suppose, not as jangly and clean as single coils, as in your humbucker. Like that. So humbuckers are generally sort of fatter, warmer, beefier, all these words that are used to describe it, less bright, muddier, of all the things. So when you coil split it, what you're doing is not coil tapping. Tapping is a different thing. A lot of people, I get quite annoyed about people calling them coil taps. Even sometimes calls them coil taps in brochures for like Epiphones and stuff. That it's not coil tap. So when you coil split it, what you're doing is you're basically cancelling one of these out, and you're only listening to one of them. So what you're listening to is a single coil pickup, because this one's not doing anything, it's not plugged in. So it does sound very similar to this. Not exactly the same, it has to be said. There are various differences, partly to do with the fact that there's two pickups right next to each other, and they're both soldered onto the same base plate, so that it's not quite as bright and as good sounding as an actual single coil. It's not, even the most expensive ones, they're not exactly as good, but it's very, very similar to, it's pretty close. I did a diagram showing you what it does, right? So here's your humbucker. So here's your signal goes in here, round this coil, and in this case it's I've got it run clockwise. Then it comes out of that coil, and then goes into this coil, and then goes round to anti-clockwise, and then it comes out of that as your hot. It comes out. On a humbucker, there is also an earth, because there's an earth wire stuck onto the metal base plate, which I will come to, maybe not in this video, because I'm going to try and keep this down. It's already 7 minutes, I've not got to it yet. Right, so to coil split it, this is the wire. These two should be joined together. There, right. So these two are joined together. What you get is, what you want to do is this wire here, which the two of them joined together. See if you move that, if you put this on a switch to connect it to earth, right? It means that the signal comes through here and it just misses out this coil, which means you're only listening to this coil. So it's like, that's your coil split. If you take this and you stick it to here instead, it misses out this coil, because electricity always takes the path of least resistance. So it takes this coil, which means this one goes out, which means you listen to this one. So in this case, it would normally be north. They call them north and south coil. I should probably write on it. I'll write on. I'll put south and north just to make it. Yeah, right. So I've called this one south coil and this one north coil. So if you connect this here to the output, you're cancelling out the north, so you're listening to the south coil. And if you put this to the input, you're cancelling out the south, so you're listening to the north. All easy? Good. Right. So here's your extra wire. On a pickup, sometimes this is just one wire, so it's basically a wire soldered on to this connector, the wire that joins the two coils together. And sometimes it gives you two wires, because you can do other things with it. But for coil splitting, you don't need two, you just need the one. So having a wire soldered on there will give you your coil split wire to, as I said, you're switch it between either to there to listen to the south coil or to there to listen to the north coil. That's pretty much all a coil split does. What you want to do that with is, I'll put it away. This is an SPST switch. So as you can see, it's an SPST, and this is a DPDT. Which, as you can see, this one has 6 lugs on it. and this one has 3. Normally you just buy these because they're about the same price. They're 50 pence or something like that. So this is basically just 2 of these. But for this part of the video, I'm just going to use this to keep it try and keep it as simple as possible. So what it does is it connects. Lost my pencil again. Nope, still lost my pencil. There you go. Right. So it connect in the 2 positions. It's either on or up. It's either this position or this position. One of them, it joins the center lug to here, and the other position, it joins the center lug to here. That's really all it does. I've just realised that the drawings that I pre-drew for this, I've used the double pull double throw, which is this one, which is basically exactly the same. I'll show you stuck together. So, focus. Having the light behind me is not the best idea. There we go. So in one position, when the switch is up, it connects the centre 2 lugs to the top 2, and in the other position, it connects the centre 2 lugs to the bottom 2. Pretty easy. Both sides are the same, so if you've got it switched up, it does both. So what you want to do here is this is basically, if you imagine, I'm just using one side of this just now. Draw around it there just to show you I'm only using one side and just ignoring the other 3. So I'm only interested in the focus. Come on, there we go. Right. So in this case, I'm putting that split wire, which I was talking about, which is normally, if you don't pay attention to the colours, but quite often when you buy a pickup that's got extra wires on it, the red and the white are soldered together, or 2 of the wires are joined together. That normally means it's the tap ones, which is which we've got here, the split. So you put the split there, solder it onto there, and then you solder this to the output of the pickup. The pickup is either going to be going to a volume control on a 2 volume control thing. So it's got whatever the actual output, the pickup goes onto the volume control. Stick this wire onto it as well. If it's only, sometimes it goes straight to the switch. So you put this output wire onto wherever the output of the pickup is going, and that would give you, I can't remember whether it was north or south coil, one of the coils, or you put the split to earth, so that when the switch is in this state, neither of these are doing anything. Yeah, because what it's doing is it's connecting this to this, and there's nothing connected there. So they're both off and both working as a humbucker. Whereas if you go to the other position here, what it's doing is it's joining. No, sorry. If you go to there, it's not doing anything. If you go to there, it's joining this to this, these 2 together, which is short circuiting it, or short circuiting it was giving you either north or south coils. Right, I think that's pretty much it. My thinking about, we'll just grab a guitar right now while it's sitting there. Sorry for showing you my groinal region. Yeah. So normally on these guitars, as I said, there's two coils. One of them is clockwise and the magnet's one way around, and the other one is anti-clockwise and the magnet's the other way around. Yeah. So what you ideally want to do is you want to, when you're listening, when you're coil splitting 2 pickups, you want it to either be the positive and clockwise one from this pickup, and the negative and anti-clockwise one from this pickup. So when you've got them both on, they're actually hum cancelling. It doesn't really matter which whether you do it. Just it'll be less buzzy when you're using both of them. You can choose which way around. Ideally, you would think normally it's either the inside coils or the outside coils, but that's not always the case. I might actually even be able to tell on this one. Maybe not. Maybe not. Hold on, I'll be able to tell you. Yeah, so I'm just holding another pickup over the top of it, and it's wanting to stick to this coil, and it's not wanting to stick to this coil, which means that this one is the same. Well, it's actually the opposite way around because I'm using the top of the pickup. But you know what I mean. So this is state A. This pickup sticks to it, and this is state B. The pickup doesn't stick to it. So on this one, it's the same way around. So on these pickups, if you wanted hum cancelling, it's you either listen to these 2 or you listen to these 2, which isn't ideal. Ideally, what you probably want to do is you can actually just physically flip the pickup round, because the idea of listening to the outside 2 and the inside 2 is probably best. Although in saying that, no, actually I've decided the best place for the single coil pickup is to have this one on, because if you go there, it's very, very bright. It's more extreme, whereas this one's a more usable sound. And if you're in the neck position, you want the most neckiest one. So ideally, if I was just going to coil split this with one switch, which I think I did actually, when you coil split this guitar, it's these two you listen to, so you get the sort of not quite so trebly of the two coils in this pickup, and you get the bassier of the two pickups and the two coils in this one, giving you it's just a bit difficult when you're looking at it like that. Pretty easy. So what I'm saying there was basically, instead of using that switch I just used, I just spilled kind of juice all over the floor, bastard. Right, so I'll end that video pretty shortly. Just knocked over a can of Rockstar. Yeah, so there's the 6-pole position switch I was talking about. On that guitar, I put it on a push-pull pot, and as you can see, a push-pull pot just still has the same 6 terminals. It's basically exactly the same thing, apart from to turn it on, you do that, to turn it off, you do that, and it connects. It just does exactly the same as this, apart from instead of having a switch, it's got the in and out. That's it. I do like these because it means you can hide them and you don't need to drill extra holes in your guitar as well. So what I've done in this guitar, it'll be 2 seconds, I put a coil split on push-pulls on each pickup. So when you pull this up, it cancels out this coil and gives you this one. And when you pull this up, it cancels out this coil and gives you this one. That, by using 2 switches, even though I'm only using half the switch, as you saw there, I'm only using the 3 lugs on one side and not on the other side, it means I can have single coil and humbucker, or single coil and humbucker, or both single coil or both humbucker, just by which one I've got pushed up. Right, so that'll do for coil split 1. I'm going to do another video in a minute. Still 17 minutes doing a very basic bit, but I did talk about pickups at the start, so the next video will be shorter. Rock on!